Morning, Vim.
Good morning. Okay, now I see you. Okay. So, welcome to the new time.
Yeah, let's see. Alex is online. Let me ping him.
Our Australian friends are not here. Yeah. Or yeah, I don't know whether they will join. They also moved the meeting to this time,
Yeah.
and it seems that we can do that. So, yeah. Let me share my screen.
Hi, Alex.
Hello. Is actually this timing better for you guys or worse?
It's earlier start.
Yeah, Monday morning.
But
I mean, it's
yeah,
fine, but
if it's for the Telstra guys to join, then that's fair.
Yeah, I don't know whether they will join right now. I don't know whether they saw it. They asked, yeah, so I had a call and then they asked to do it and then, yeah. Okay, we'll see. Yeah, so yeah, for me it has been a while. I have been like all over the world. So maybe, yeah, let's maybe discuss the content. I put some topics that I have listed myself, right, on the agenda. I don't know whether you guys have any other topics.
I had a general one. I don't know if I think it's from the previous date. This architecture, designing, and planning. That's something that I think I'd like to discuss. Just a general,
Sure.
a general topic there. We can do that at the end if there's time, or at least I can introduce what I want to talk about there.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's add it here. Yeah. Any other things? No. Okay. Yeah, we'll take it from there. Yeah, one of the things that I wanted to discuss is, yeah, I don't know whether it's related to your topic, Alex. Is, yeah, let's assume we merge, hopefully one day. Then what do we tackle next, basically? Or what is the biggest bang for the buck we want to tackle next? But yeah, so let's first discuss maybe the content of the release. I think there was this race condition that we found finally the root cause for. We had this issue in integration tests that Marcus was running with the non-reverted flag, that in config server sometimes what was set in the API server was not reflected towards the data server. So what happened basically was during the reconcile loop, because we put all the configs together, I also put a finalizer onto each of the configs. And so what happens in the client side is that if you, so the config mutates. So for example, if during the API call, let's say something has happened or the content of the config was changed, that finalizer apply was actually retrieving the new content, and I was using the new content as the source. And as a result, what happened is like config went from revertive to non-revertive. And then we were doing a transaction with revertive, but during the call, the non-revertive was set, right? So we picked up non-revertive and then we applied non-revertive, but we were actually doing revertive. And as such, the next iteration did not apply because we were using the new content. So we fixed that.
It was basically taken over into the status field of applied config, right?
Yeah.
And because of that patch operation for the finalizer, that updated the object that we had at hand and that we were then writing into the status field. And so yeah, the status reflected already the change, the updated state. And yeah, hence there were no further updates yeah, calculated or seen for the controller.
Yeah, so you basically you start to transact with A, but in the meantime A moved to A prime, let's call it, right? So the content changed. And so what we did is we picked up A prime instead of keeping with staying with A. And because we picked up A prime and we set it in the status, the next reconciliation that was triggered thought everything is good and there was no longer a transaction happening, right? And so that was, let's say, the bug in essence. So what we do right now is we stay with A, right? And then we apply, we set A into the status, and then next reconciliation we pick up A prime, and then that should work. Yeah, so I think that was a nasty one because I couldn't get my head where it was happening, but then yeah, Marcus with the debug, we finally found it. So now the question is, yeah, the full integration test, because of course we would like to merge, right, the code such that we have all the functionality with revertive, and then our integration test would run, let's say, ideally flawlessly, right? Because then we have a good baseline to start from. And I think, Marcus, you are at that stage, right, where you still find, or you still had some issues.
Exactly. So I mean, we also did some changes to the integration tests, right? Like one thing's been that that we had to change how we revert deviations, right? Because we're using the sub-resources right now. So part of the tests include pulling kubectl SDC and using that then as a means to revert these non-revertive deviations. Besides that, I pulled, I mean, since it was such a long time frame, I pulled the tests a bit more apart, such that we have a finer granularity on the top level already. So that's also something that went in there. But overall, I mean, the usual, right? Works on the dev's machine. But yeah, in the GitHub action runners, we still see issues that I now need to investigate. Yeah, what the issue is there, if it's a timing issue or whatever. But yeah, I assume it's more on the test case side that leads to the issue, rather than the actual code. But yeah, that's stuff that I'll be working on this week as a first thing, to get the integration tests back on track. And I think the minute we have that ready, we can merge the actual changes.
In terms of the review, I guess you'll need to have I just had a quick look, and there are now some new commits on top of what I reviewed before.
Yeah, there are some additional changes made, right? So one is to fix this issue in config server. I added some logging for the debug, right? So there is some additional change, but no new PRs, I think. But just
No, sorry, on the PR that was these large ones that I already that I reviewed before. I see there's some more. So what I can do is also look at those and give
that would be,
so at least it's close up to date, and then when we're ready, it should be a bit faster than to imagine.
Yeah, would be great.
Yeah, sure.
And then assume we succeed. What is the release we call it? Is it V020?
Are we not currently on 00?
No, we are. We moved to 010. We called it last time because people felt that we should move to 0.1.
This is Alex. This is according the docs repo.
Yeah.
Right. We said the docs in the end contain the artifacts, and there you can take a look at what config server and data server version and so on makes up an entire release. So yeah, Wim is talking about the docs repos version numbers.
Sorry. Yeah. I would say, yeah, we bump the middle number up.
Yeah, because it's there is some backward incompatibility. At the moment there is no. Yeah, which is the discussion for the next topic. But yeah, I think my take was also V020, right? Let me call it like that.
Yeah.
Which leads to the next question to a little bit is like, today I left the running config so now we have two modes to actually retrieve running config. One is through sub-resource and one is through the original way. I left it in for the time being, but we can, my question is also, what do we do with it? Do we ditch one or the other? Do we ditch the original one?
Can you use kubectl to get a sub-resource?
So, okay.
You would need to use the, I mean, kubectl itself is only, so my understanding is only able to cope with the scale and the log sub-resources. So that means that to retrieve, for instance, running or handle or work with deviations, you would need deviations. We also still report as
regular. So deviation are still reported as regular.
Yeah.
The thing is,
if you want to revert deviations these days, you can of course craft a curl command and so on to make that work. Or the easiest way, so somehow the kubectl SDC plugin becomes a necessity, right? Because there everything is set up so you can simply use bash completion, whatever, to tell it which deviations to either entirely or partially revert, and then it's just a regular shell command that's sourcing obviously your kubectl or your kube config. So yeah, it would be advisable from my perspective to install the SDC plugin to kubectl anyways.
So you can, so the problem is that there is a kubectl raw command. So for running config, I think it's still doable. But the problem is that you need to specify the full path, like APIs / what is it? Group, version, tenant. So if you specify the full path / running configs, right? So you basically then with the query parameter, right? You can. So you basically have to craft the URL yourself, basically. Now for clear deviation, it's a bit harder because you have to add content, right? But for running config, it's probably still doable. But yeah, you do not get the nice so you don't get the auto completion and stuff like that. A lot of that is not there. So yeah, so I agree with Marcus that actually SDC Cuttle becomes almost mandatory.
If that's the case, I would say we have a unified way of interacting. I wouldn't have multiple different ways, so I would use the sub-resources rather than the CRs. Although
Yeah.
the one thing is, I don't know how that would play with the observability stuff that we have. So we're using kube state metrics to discover the resources. Well, not discover, but to we use kube state metrics to scrape the values to see what the state is. And I don't know how that plays with sub resources.
The status is still built in. So if you look to the two sub resources in Kubernetes that are first-class citizen are status and scale, basically, right?
Yeah, yeah. But we have deviation monitoring, so we have deviation listing and so on.
That stays. So we didn't touch that one, right? The only thing, the two that we changed was to clear the deviation, you need to use a sub-resource. So regular deviation are still as is. The only thing is that if you, we advise not to update them through kubectl.
Okay.
So before you could clear a deviation by changing the content, that we no longer advise and the reason I went away from that method was because the API server, so that when the data server reports a deviation and you are editing, you can get a conflict.
Are we only advising not to do it, or did we remove that bit?
No, you need to set your RBAC rules in Kubernetes to not do that because it's a regular storage entity. So we store it in the storage. So it's basically the RBAC rules that determine whether or not you are able to edit or not.
There should be some reconciliation code like backing it, right?
No, but I cannot avoid. Then we have to look at origins and stuff like that. So the origin of an edit cannot be done via. Yeah.
Okay.
At the moment, there is no protection. But
Nice.
we could. But then, yeah. So you have to basically look at like the origin of the command. But for example, that also would mean that admin cannot do anything, which is also a bit dangerous. Right. So at the moment there is.
Well, I would have thought, yeah. I mean, worst case, you can go and delete the deviation to basically, but that would only reset the reporting state, right? That would delete it, but then on the next,
Yeah, it will
like
come back.
without pushing that information towards data server. But the next report obviously would recreate that resource again. That was my.
Yeah, that's how it works, right? So it's not
Okay.
so what I'm trying to say is that if you edit it, nothing is going to happen with it. That's the new way of working. You can edit it, and you're right, is that the next reporting will overwrite the content again.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how the current system works. So before we always said, if you look to the current docs, I think we say update the deviation record or the CR or whatever we call it. And then that was triggering a reconciliation loop. So that is no longer there.
Okay.
Yeah, and also the content of that deviation is no longer taken into account in the reconciliation loop. Yeah.
So Alex, does that all work for you? Does that make sense? Or
Yeah, I think so. As
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
mainly getting it from these deviation CRs. I don't think we're getting it from other resources. Maybe we have the status of some of the other things, but it's just getting information. But those are not sub-resources anymore, or they were never sub-resources.
No, yeah.
I think that's
Only status, but that was that hasn't changed, so that is still the same.
the status field. Yeah, no, I think yeah. Should be fine. Yeah. As long as we have a deviation resource, I think that then we're not updating, we're just reading, right? So then it's
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and read is fine, yeah. I mean, you can update, but I'm just saying the consequence of updating have changed, basically.
yeah.
The consequence or the result of the update has changed. Yeah. So I would also prefer to remove the old thing, but yeah, I kept it because I was not sure. So at the end of the day, it uses the same code path.
Making the retrieval also a sub-resource.
Yes.
And that would then become a sub-resource of the
target
config or like combined as under the target.
It's on the target because the config is on the target, right?
Okay. You know, I mean, I'm like from a logical perspective, you could say, like per configuration, you would get the deviations, right? And then you have the unmanaged, which would obviously need to stay on the target. But yeah, I mean, that's might also become a mess, right?
But let's be, because I think we are, let's look at the system, right? So everything is on, so all the sub-resources that we added are under target, right? But so the deviations that you had before, so you still have different types of deviations, so they stay as is, right? So this hasn't changed at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
What has changed, let me see with the history. This is what.
You know, I mean that makes sense. I was just saying that a deviation for a config, like from a logical perspective, I had assumed that would make sense to push it as a sub-resource under the config itself, right?
Yeah. So this would be the command with kubectl that you have to do for running configs. But with SDC cutl, it will be way more elegant. You see?
Yeah.
That's yeah. You see, you have to specify this whole path, you see? And then you have, there's still an issue with, I cannot, XML doesn't work, right? So we have, but this is, yeah. So in kubectl, sorry, in SDC cutl, I think, Marcus, you have a mode where you can retrieve XML, but you go straight to the data server, right? So we have to look how to fix this, but this is basically, yeah, this is a Kubernetes issue, but this functionality was not there anyhow before, right? So Marcus asked whether we could retrieve it in XML, the config, and I added a query parameter. So in the query parameter, you have a format, as you see it. So I think if you don't specify anything, it's a default. See, so it still works, right? And then I think if you do JQ or something like that, you get the nice format, right? Yeah. Yeah. So basically, yeah, that's the what we are discussing. Deviations as such does not change, right? So this has not changed, and you have two types. They are still as is. None of that has changed. Right. It's just that this, but so for this, there would be kubectl. I didn't install I have the plugin, but so you would have to do this, and then I don't have the latest plugin installed, but so here you would have, I think, running config or something like that, Marcus, right?
You're mute, Marcus.
Thanks. So yeah, for you, this is still SDCIO, right? So we
Yeah.
said we would rename it, and that's what happened in the meantime.
Yeah.
It's kubectl SDC, and then yeah, running, and I mean, if you just go to the GitHub page, there is a README that details what's possible.
Yeah. Slash
kubectl-SDC.
plain that was there, and
Running config.
yeah. So it's like this.
Exactly, and yeah, all the targets are
Auto
auto-completed,
Yeah.
and it also takes the namespace parameter and blah blah blah. And yeah, so right now it's set up to do port forwarding to data server, and then it's able to get all the formats. But yeah, as said, we need to fix the like getting XML format via Kube API, and then we can rewire it and make it retrieve stuff from there without this nasty hack of doing port forwardings and so on.
Yeah, right now, yeah. Yeah, Marcus goes straight to the data server, but the challenge is that we have no RBAC, or it's basically open for everybody. So that's the bad side, but it has more functionality. Okay. So yeah, so that's basically the thing. Yeah, I'm personally also a fan. I would prefer to remove the old mode, but if there is, it's not a lot of code, but it's just an API resource and stuff like that that is being used. So it's because the code under the hood is the same basically, but there is the whole API surface that is being there in the code. Yeah. Okay. But if we can remove it, the question is, do we do it with this PR or do we wait till we merge? Do we do it after we merge? Because right now the current code, my personal view is we should merge as soon as possible because there's a lot of stuff again.
Yeah, I agree. That way we can also do some testing as well, because I think we're running in Swisscom now sort of 2 or 3 versions old deployment. And I think it'll be good to do some testing with the later versions. So I think we should get it merged once it's ready, sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Yeah, I also would do it after we merged and then remove it then.
Yeah, but like from my understanding, Alex, you said you're not sure if if the tooling, if the environment that you built around would be able to cope with the sub resources and so on, right?
Only for the deviations, but it's not doing any modifications. It's just reading them.
So that's, I mean, that would be a prerequisite, like from your side, right? To at least check if that tool would be able to cope with sub resources and so on before we could even think of removing it, right?
No, I don't think so. I think what he's saying is he uses a deviation at the moment in his tooling, and we didn't touch the deviation side. So as such,
okay, then I didn't get your last comment. My understanding now is you said I'm a big fan of sub-resource blob, but we should change. So, like, to me, that sounded like all the deviations. Or did you talk about only running?
you mean my comment to remove the running?
To remove something, but like, what was the something?
Running config.
Running. Okay, understood.
Yeah, running config is what I was referring to. Okay, so yeah, so I would say let's try to merge, and then we will remove it next, because there is always some small stuff that we need to do anyhow, right? Okay. So then the next question is, okay, so Alex, let's first go to your topic.
Yeah. So for this one, my thought was just that I sometimes see that things change a lot, and there are new ways of handling different resources and so on. And I think it would be important to really spend some time to sketch out what the architecture is, or what the architecture should be. So that means the different resources that we have, how they interact with each other, the sort of contract between them, so that we can have a concrete goal where if we then say, okay, we want to change, let's take the example of the sub-resources. We want to change now to using sub-resources instead of CRs, then we need to implement it in the architecture and see really what the effects are, and how this should be done, and get sort of feedback there. The reason behind this is for the realistic production readiness. Yeah. So we want to move to production with SDC, but if the interface and the contracts keep changing, this will make it very hard for us to sell it, or to keep pushing for it, as we'll just get a lot of pushback from engineers saying, okay, but if things keep changing all the time, we can't handle it. I think it'll also make it a bit clearer and a bit more structured for people to then start working on things like the data server and config server, when they understand what their resources are and how these look.
Yeah.
So from my side, I think it's important that we spend a bit of time to really draw this out fully. I know that there is this high-level architecture overview in the docs, but I really mean talk about the individual resources and what's important, what they contain and how they interact.
Yeah. Now I think we have had conversation on the sub-resources and why we changed it.
It was just an example of sub-resource.
What you're basically saying is that we should document the, yeah, so, okay, so the reason why we changed, yeah, so to sub-resources was, yeah, at the end of the day, we did it because we believed that we were on the wrong track at the end of the day. But what you're referring to is that what are all the components and how they interact with each other, right?
Yeah. Yeah. To define this contract, because big changes. I mean, this change is huge, and it's taken now a considerable amount of time to implement.
Yeah.
Which which is fine, but it means that the network engineers are just waiting for the new release, because I've been saying, yeah, there's a new release that's coming, and they haven't really been able to progress. I think that we need to start making moves towards production readiness, which means sort of having a bit more, I don't have the word now, but a bit smoother when it comes to updates and changes, such that we have some, not gradual, but there's a word that I'm missing. Consistency, maybe, is better. So consistency, and it's not a problem to change things, but if we do that, then we need to really plan it a bit.
Which is, I see, okay, so I think there is two things that what you are referring to. One is, okay, I think I also would like to go to, let's say, a V1000, right? So like a version 1, basically, is we have to plan for that, right? And I think there is two things that I'm hearing you say. I think one is, it seems that not everybody understands all the architecture that sits in SDC at the moment, right? So we should probably clarify that and ensure that that is better understood and by the people, so we can spend some time on it to actually flush or discuss that, right? Because that's also to get a baseline. And then the second thing that I'm hearing is, okay, then is like, what do we need to get to production? What is needed to get to a V1001, right?
Yeah, and at that point, we need to plan that big changes need to be taken carefully.
Yes, correct. So that's why, yeah, I was adamant to get the sub-resources in, because I feel that this is, because we changed the architecture, because we were on the wrong path somehow, right? We wanted to tackle that first, because I believe always if the foundation is right, it's easier to build on top rather than changing it, because then like you said, you change all the dependency, but also all the clients or consumers that use the system, which is always a challenge, right? But yeah, so I think one is that let's say discuss and document, right, the architecture, and then the second thing is how do we get to V1000, right?
Yeah.
Now, so I can discuss, because there has been, so what I've been doing in the past, and probably there's some lacking. One of the things that I did is, for every controller in the config server, I have a doc that explains what it does, but I can bring that to the docs or something like that. But that's what I was doing for myself. I'm not sure whether it's 100% up to date right now, but that's what I've been doing in the past. So there is an MD file on every controller that explains what its goal is and what it's supposed to do. But I'm not sure whether it's 100% up to date, so I'll have a look at it. But then we have to bring that to the docs, probably, I guess, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good start. My goal with that is to make it easier to understand how to fix something.
Yes.
So let's say if a developer comes and wants to start working on SDC, how do you even start there? Once you start to understand the interactions between the various components, I mean, on a low level, right? Then these things are a bit more simple, and it also keeps it clearer in our mind, because that way we understand. Okay, well, we have to really think about how we want the different parts to interact. How should a target be represented? How should a target and its sub-resources work together? these kinds of things are important. It also goes with this running config, right? How does this running config look? It would all be part of this documentation.
But for example, yeah, so what you also say is that we should have a guide on how sub-resources are implemented and where the code is regarding that particular topic, for example, right?
For me, it's more, the target requires the use of these various other components, right? We have the other resources that then configure a target. A target is not managed by a user, but it's managed by this. But it does have these resources that are managed. It could be managed by a user, sort of, right? With the deviations, you can then send clear deviations and these kinds of things. I think having sort of up to a point, I don't think it says, okay, in this directory you'll find the controller for this and this.
No, it's a different thing. So what you are actually right now is more of a high level. That's the top level, right? So I was already saying, because there was a comment in the past that people didn't understand what each the controllers were doing, right? Which is probably a piece of the puzzle, but it's what you're basically saying right now is it should first be a level up of what are the base building blocks, what do they do, and how do they get about as a beginning, and then we can zoom in step by step into the details, right?
Yeah. I don't have the perfect solution. I think that's something we work together on finding out, but probably at least having some more there. I mean, we have a very high level one right currently, which is just the data server, config server, and schema server,
yes,
and cache and so on. But I think it's important to have at least a resource list and sort of.
Yeah, I think Matt and yourself did something in this PowerPoint. I used it at some point where you see all the arrows between all the different resources. I think I used it at some point in Nanak talk or something like that, which is probably, I think, a good basis where with some text we could probably help clarify some of that stuff, right?
Yeah. And for the developers, it's also going to be useful to understand how the components work or what their dependencies are and the contract between them.
Yeah. And then we should probably say is what are the CR dependencies, right?
Yeah.
And then we can also have a zoom in on the controller we use, right? Or all the components. And then we can also say, for example, I zoom into specific things like how sub-resource and where the code is and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Code, and I probably each component has its own flavor of that, I guess, right? So it's something like that, right?
Yeah.
Make it easier to onboard, let's call it new people, right?
Yeah.
Or existing people.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, both.
Right.
Yeah. And I think this second point, how to get to V1, is also very important.
Yes.
Now the core is production. We want to use SDC for configuring that, but if things change too much and there's a risk of some instability, then it will be hard to put it for the production core, and it would then remain in dev, and that's not where we want to be. So we need to really make sure that we get to V1 and then have a plan on how we go forward from there as well.
Yeah. Now, if I personally look at the system, right? So okay, so I always say we have to get the foundation right from the beginning, right? If you want to go to production, then I think, yeah, and maybe that's not the highest priority, right? But what we haven't done yet is look at all the memory consumption end to end, right? So that is one thing that we have to still. At the moment we have not, or I have avoided that at the moment because it might have some implications all over the place, right? But so that's one of the things right now. I think that it's probably not as optimal as it can be. And the question is that critical for production? I think it's critical for very large systems, right? So, but maybe let's list, I think it's good to list them, right? And then we can probably prioritize them based on all the input and all the people that all the consumers, right? So I'm not saying that what I'm saying has to be the priority. I'm just listing things that I think has to be done, right? So let's list them, right? Memory consumption end to end. I personally feel I have deprioritized this a little bit at the moment to get because for me this is really important for large systems, right? So for then I think personally I feel if you look to the functional behavior, I think the base is there. What we do not have, right? And this is where there were from a functional behavior, like sensitive config, right, is still the thing that is missing. And then the other big one was actions, right?
Yeah.
So I personally feel that those two are going to be the next ones we have to tackle somehow. That's my personal feeling, because I think we need, but I feel that those, we don't have to change the architecture. This is basically building on top of what we have, right? So, but I think it's important that we architect these correctly, or that we start architecting these correctly and start adding them to the system, right?
Yeah.
Because these are functional things that we are missing at the moment, right?
And we started to do it that way as well. I mean, when we were discussing these implementations, we also had a look and discussed what the right way to do it was and so on. I think we just need to revisit that in the current context and see if it still holds.
Yeah, because I think, just FYI, for the sensitive config, I've discussed with the people from Telstra, and they wanted to actually extend this to not only do sensitive config, but for example, also grab, for example, an IP address that is on the API server and feed it somewhere into the config. So they see this as but we have to discuss it. But I'm just giving you the feedback that I got last week as a potential way to simplify the overall job, right? Because if you look at the current architecture that we had for sensitive config was we reference a secret, and then we have a path, and then we add the data over there. That's kind of what we did. And they said, okay, I have other use cases, not necessarily related to secrets. But so that was the that I got.
No, yeah, I understand. I understand the desire. I worry then we turn into a templating.
Yes, correct. So that's why
I would also say different. Yeah. We're solving problems on a different level.
Yes.
In
correct.
that case. Yeah. But this is why we have the discussions.
Yeah, correct. So that's why I did not go there. So I just wanted to highlight that that's one of the things. And then actions. Also, the Telstra people had a request for actions, by the way, which was a way, actually, from what I understood, they did the secretive stuff through actions.
Yeah. Okay. In their pipelines, you mean?
Yeah, so that's what I understood. But of course, we didn't have a lot of time to go into all the details. But that was what I understood. Is I asked them how they use and why they used actions, and what they said is that they did it because of the hashes and secrets and stuff like that. So but again, to be flushed out. So, but for me, if I look to it, these are the two main ones, not.
From my
and
side.
then. Yeah, and then there was, for example, what they also highlighted was they wanted to get the schema from the in netconf, but it's probably not as critical, right? Netconf schema from the device.
Yeah, download it.
Yeah, but this okay. I'm not saying that I feel that we can do that. That's not for me to get to production probably.
Yeah,
I
this
feel
could be a feature afterwards. I don't. This is not a V1 requirement in my view. So feature, nice to have feature. But
yeah, I feel that those two are going to be for me the most critical one. That's my sense.
from our side, these two are the ones that are blocking sort of the entire transition to SDC. So we still need to use alternative pipelines for pushing secrets and for the actions.
What about the user sorted list, Alex? How high or low is that on the list?
So I don't know. I don't know because I haven't spoken to the engineers that need to put things in a specific order. Up until now, I think it's been okay to not have a user order, but then for some of the other network functions, we will need to have these user ordered lists. We did find this workaround where you can just name things with sort of a number identifier in them.
The key names of the items, yeah.
But it's not the ideal solution, obviously, there. But yeah, okay. User sorted lists maybe could also be something that's in V1. Yeah, thanks, Marcus. Yeah.
I mean, and I think what I would propose is that for each of these, we add an item into our .github, right? So that at least that we can track them. And we can do the discussions on the content on these, right? Otherwise, our board should be our source of truth somehow, right? I'm just listing them here just to ease the conversation. There might be more, so I'm not saying that this is the list, but I think we should identify the ones that we need to get to production first. And then, okay, there will always be smaller stuff that we probably need, but we can tackle that along. But I feel that, okay, sensitive config, we have a proposal somehow, right, on how we could fix it. But I feel that actions we don't have yet fully. I mean, so I see two options. I think what I'm trying to say is that actions probably we need to flush out sooner than later to try to see whether we can come to an agreement or a way that we could implement it. Because if we have a bit of a foundation, right, then we can see. Because for me, actions, I personally had two. On one hand, I thought of them as precondition and postconditions, but I'm not sure whether that's correct, whether that would give you the functionality or not. But yeah, so we need to and the other one is really, it's an imperative operation. Now, the good thing with the sub-resources, the way I look at them, they are imperative operations. You see? So in other words, you could say target, action, bang, right? And we could do it that way. You see?
Through creation of a sub-resource for that specific thing.
Yeah, you basically say it's an action or netconf action, right? Because it's related to netconf, right? So we could say, we could call action a netconf sub-resource, right? And then you clear deviation. It's at the end of the day, it's an imperative operation. So you basically clear the deviation, you do the transaction, and you get a result, right? And it's either good or bad, but it's not stored in the CRs. It's not really. So the result of it is going to be stored somewhere, but the action itself is not. So in other words, the sub-resources is another way of doing netconf stuff, right? So, but I'm just saying I don't know the exact use case. I'm just throwing in ways to potentially do it.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think we started discussing it some time ago, and I think it needs to be updated to see what.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, for me, action seems to, for me at least, I don't have the right. I see different ways of doing it, but I don't know what is the best way which gives us the biggest bang for the buck. But what I was trying to say is that sub-resources became a new paradigm into our system. And yeah, at some point I was not sure that we could do it, but then it turns out we can, right? So we found a way to make that work. So, which gives us a lot of other capabilities, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, so let's maybe spend some time next week if we can to flush out actions. I'll create the issue in GitHub, right?
Okay.
Unless it's already there.
I'll see if I can get somebody from the DMC team, the mobile core team, to also join next week then.
Yeah, that would be good.
I'll see if I can do that.
Yeah. And then we can, so flush out maybe actions. And then I also asked the Telstra people maybe to join, right? Because they had a similar request. Do you know that they also use Ericsson? I forgot to ask, but I think they use Ericsson core as well, right? So it's probably very similar. Yeah,
I'm sure we'll have the same things going up.
Yeah, correct. So yeah, which is good. Okay, so let's do that.
For the user sorted list, I've had an idea last week or the week before. There already exists an issue in the .github, exists already with a proposal. An idea that I came up with, but yeah, would be good if you guys can take a look and see what the flaws of this idea are. Yeah, I mean, if it's not highest priority right now, then fine, right? The first one.
Yeah, we just had our planning last week on Thursday, and I was off on Friday, so I haven't had a time yet to look at it. That's fine, but I'll look at it once I get a chance.
But yeah, that's an idea I had. Take a look, think it through.
Yeah, I'll also share it then with maybe some engineers internally to see if it would solve their problems or not.
Oh. So yeah, basically the idea there was to add a synthetic field that determines the order. If the same order number is assigned twice, then we fall back to priority and timestamp ordering, right? And when syncing back from the device, we take a look at what's there already, and then we maybe take like distances of 1,000, right? And we insert in between. That was kind of the idea, right? So if it's coming back from the device, there's no priorities, no entries like initial sync, right? We would just go and be like, oh yeah, this is the first one is priority 1,000, second one is 2,000, third one is 3,000. And even if someone adds to the device, we could go and add it 2,500 or whatever, right? And then also you'd be able to insert from the API's perspective in between things and so on. Of course, we will have an issue at some point if you're shuffling around these things a lot. But yeah, starting with 1,000, I think. We'll have some time to figure out what we do with that later on.
Yeah, sorry, I was just doing this. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'll have a read as well of what you put in there, and see if I can think of anything. I'll also try and see if I can share it then with some people that I know have to deal with these user order lists, and see what they think as well.
Yeah, I think the other thing that we still had an issue with is this Arista loading as well, which is this netconf Yang 1.1 challenge, right, Marcus? We still have to tackle that, but I think it's not necessarily to get to the first release. But that's another thing that we still have to address somehow at some point. But yeah, so let's list each of these. I'll add them here for the time being, right? But I think we should have them.
We should then also add milestones and so on, right?
Yeah, correct. So, but that's the next thing.
Able
First, we need to capture it, and then we should plan, right, into the board. Yeah.
Sure.
By the way, yeah, I don't know, Alex, whether you were there, but there was some, let's say, people on the board had some, let's say, issues with the original proposal, but I think I found a way to track it on a per feature level somehow, but this is not the right one. Yeah, this is what I did.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So we could define a release and then add it to it. So I found a way to do, like, I think that's one of the things that you asked for, I think. So, but at the moment we haven't planned something. But yeah, so at the moment we call this V11, but maybe so we should change. I'll change this to 20. But we have a way to track now on a per release basis.
This is nicer. Yeah, I like this.
Yeah.
People.
Yeah, I need to change this to the main thing, but yeah, so there is a way that yeah, that's possible.
Very cool. Nice, thanks.
Yeah, but let's first put the issues and then we add them here, right? And then we'll work on them. Yeah. All right, we are running out of time, I think. If there is anything else or not. If not, I thank you for the attendance, and then we'll move things forward. Let's hope we can get this merged ASAP, and then yeah, we also need to update the docs in conjunction because there is some changes. So I'll do that from the moment Marcus has integration tests running. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll look into the reviewing the MR. I'll try and do that today.
Yeah.
I should have time, I hope.
Yeah.
All
right.
I'll try.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.
All right.